Helo agus fesgyfa, a hiwd mil falche a charid, is Misha Alistair a Fintech Finance agus show Fintech Week London. In this session here, Fintech City-to-City, we're going to be having a look at the British Isles. That was a bit of Scottish Gaelic for you there, Stephen, in case you weren't. It's not just about London anymore. So I'm quite excited to have quite a very diverse in terms of the British Isles panel to have a look at. First of all, today from Digital Jersey, we have Tony Moretta. Tony, whereabouts are you in the world today? And can you tell us a little bit about the #1 goal of Digital Jersey?
So I'm in Jersey at the moment. There are far worse places to be in the middle of a pandemic than a 45 square mile island in the sea. Digital Jersey is a government-backed economic development agency. Our job is to both grow the digital sector of the Jersey economy, but also to actually help other sectors of the economy, including the finance industry. Jersey is a national finance centre. Use the benefits of technology to strengthen its proposition, attract new companies, develop new products and services.
Absolutely, and as you said, it's probably one of the best places to have lived out the pandemic in. Heading a bit further north from Fintech Wales, we have Sarah Williams-Gardner. Sarah, now you're on the ground right now at Fintech Week London. Is that right?
That's absolutely right. So I'd like to say Croeso and Cymru, but I'm actually in London today, as you said, at the Fintech Week London event, which is super exciting to be with real people in a room with real panelists and questions. And the energy here is really, really high.
I've been sent about 3 photographs of Chris Skinner on stage, and he just looks so happy to be back on stage, speaking. Again, same thing for yourself. Apart from, as Tony mentioned, it is about putting that in terms of the region, the digital footprint forward. What's kind of one of the #1 goals with Fintech Wales?
Well, Fintech Wales, unlike Jersey Fintech, is backed by the private sector. It's a not-for-profit members organisation, and we represent the fintech members across Wales, as well as the financial services. What are we doing at the moment that's really exciting? Well, we have a mission to establish Wales as a globally recognised fintech hub of excellence. And to underpin that, we're really looking to develop our ecosystem and community. And we were really proud to have launched back in April and started at the beginning of last week our first ever fintech accelerator here in Cardiff.
Excellent, fantastic. And lastly, rounding out the panel, we have Stephen Ingledew from Fintech Scotland. Stephen, same thing for yourself. What's kind of the #1 thing on your agenda, and where are you at the moment?
Yeah, thanks, Ali. Delighted to be with you and with Sarah and Tony as well. I'm in Edinburgh. The sun is shining, and those of you who know Scotland will know that's always the case here. So it's a super time of the year. Fintech Scotland, we're a cluster management organisation set up just over 3 years ago. 3 C's, we call it. The 3 C's is what we're about. Grow the community of innovative, exciting fintech enterprises. We're now at 170 plus in Scotland. Collaboration is the 2nd C. Help the collaboration across the community with large institutions, with the broader economy. And the 3rd C is build the cluster by collaborating with our friends in Northern Ireland, Wales, across England, Reading, Jersey, and then across the rest of the world, as well as London, of course, as well. So all about the 3 C's for us, Ali.
Fantastic. Actually, I'm very glad you brought that up around collaboration. Right, let's go straight into it. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Let's not beat around the bush. It's been a weird 18 months, and despite what Alan Sugar or Jamie Dimon or any company with a very large footprint or property exposure, you don't have to have a shiny skyscraper anymore to attract talent or even function. It's not about being at a commutable distance to London. It's about people. So with that in mind, let's start with the big boys. Let's start with the big organizations. In terms of your sort of regions from a fintech perspective, what are you suddenly finding that you could, again, hypothetically, Sarah, have, say, the executive team from HSBC at Barafundle Bay working remotely as if from London? What does that mean that people that would for the last 18 months would usually be commuting to a skyscraper could be in Wales or Scotland or Jersey or anywhere across the UK. What does that mean from your perspective? And I'm going to go for yourself, Sarah, first.
Well, what it means for us and what we're sort of aimed at is we're looking at stopping that brain drain. We're looking at giving careers and opportunities to the people who live in Wales. We have great universities here. We've got 8 universities, some 124,000 students at any one time, 40,000 graduating on a yearly basis. And we want to give them the opportunities for career. And I think that's anywhere, and you can do meaningful jobs, high quality jobs in your local area. And I'm sure we'll get this from the other regions around the UK, but when you're working in Cardiff, in Swansea, or up in Wrexham or Aberystwyth, anywhere across the Principality, you can be on the beach, you can be on a mountain, and you can be in the office all in one day.
Excellent. Do you think that going to Jersey, what's from the short term does this mean that you've had a lot of executives who were perhaps again commuting or such? What does it mean having a lot of kind of the top talent remain and not having to go into the city?
We've been very lucky in Jersey. I mean, people didn't have a huge commute anyway in Jersey. The commute was more back and forth to London. And obviously that's slowed down. We've been very lucky in Jersey. It will surprise a lot of viewers to know that in the international rankings for broadband speed, Jersey is the 2nd country in the world. And actually in lockdown, at the beginning of lockdown, we were lucky that every single fixed broadband connection in Jersey is fibre to the premises. And at the very beginning of lockdown, to give people the confidence to work from home, once they had a laptop, of course, that was the shortage, we moved every fixed broadband connection in Jersey to a gig each way, every single one. And so that meant the confidence was there that the finance industry, which is about half of Jersey's economy, they were able to work seamlessly from home. People were able to have international calls around the world. What is interesting is one of the short-term benefits I was told is a lot of the business development teams that would normally be traveling around the world were at home, and they could catch up on their pipeline. And actually their customers were stuck at home as well. So they were perhaps easy targets for them to get hold of. But what we found is one of the benefits here in Jersey, as a small island, we were able to lift restrictions quite early on. We have found that people wanted to get back to physical meetings where they could on island, and combine it with not having to do long business trips around the world. So we've had a bit of a hybrid working thing here. I mean, we had Jersey Tech Week last week, and we're able to get experts coming in from around the world, but we're also able to get locals sitting together on a panel locally. And we think the hybrid world is here to stay. People want to be able to have some physical meetings, but perhaps being traveling all the time is not the best way to do it. So there's been pros and cons, like there has been for everywhere, but I think the silver lining is people have more confidence dealing with each other online, and that helps a slightly more remote location than we have here in Jersey. But if you can benefit from island life, benefit from fast broadband, still be able to speak to all your key contacts, that's been a strength.
I'm so glad you said that. And that's it's one of those things. If I was watching this, I would be tweeting out that quote. That again, the hybrid model of doing business is here to stay, but also people now have confidence in an online way of working. Stephen, and from yourself, in terms of Scotland as a whole, because some of Scotland is incredibly fast in terms of broadband. I'm from South US, and it's not that fast there.
Yeah, that's true, Ali. Obviously, there's that need, but I think it's more than just about the actual sort of broadband connectivity. It's about actually creating a human environment that drive innovation and drive that creativity. I'll give you 2 examples. Before the pandemic, we started off the process of building the Global Open Finance Centre of Excellence in Edinburgh. And during the pandemic, last June, we won the £22 million funding from the UK government to really establish that global centre of excellence in Scotland, not just for Scotland, for the UK, really, so we can use data to drive new innovations with artificial intelligence to create new enterprises and also transform the existing financial services. And that's all about a laboratory that brings together not just ways of innovating, but different participants, communities, citizens, big enterprises, large enterprises, investors, academics, all in the same environment. centered around the human. The other example I'd give on the west side of Scotland in Glasgow is the development of the Glasgow City Innovation District, one of the most exciting innovation districts in the UK. It's going to be a role model really for the whole of the UK, bringing together not just fintech innovators and entrepreneurs, but those innovating with space, with health tech, quantum computing, artificial intelligence, all in the same laboratory and physical environment, but combining that with a virtual environment as well. So it's all about creating the environment rather than just about hybrid. It's about actually how they're used to drive new innovation.
Again, nailed on the head there. I always hear Ben Robinson always used to talk about you don't need to build a castle anymore. It used to be build up nice big high walls and hide behind that. Now it's about maintaining a forest and having that, again, that ecosystem, that collaborative approach. In terms of, as you mentioned, in terms of Glasgow and some of the cool things happening there, particularly in quantum computing, which frankly I just do not understand, but I want to. What's the kind of the knock-on effect of that? Let's move away kind of from some of the short-term implications. What's some of the long-term implications of this collaborative approach of having a lot more people locally?
It broadens out. You've got more diversity, number one. So not just the young entrepreneurs and not just those from a technology background and business sciences, but those from psychology, geography, philosophy. So different disciplines coming together. But then more importantly, you're reaching into the communities where they have problems with problem debt, with financial exclusion, digital exclusion. And fintech can be part of the solution there to reach in those communities that have not been reached before. So real diversity in terms of people, different disciplines, different backgrounds coming together. And then you think, actually, fintech, what's fintech's role in the whole net zero agenda? And of course, with COP26 coming to Glasgow later on this year, it's an opportunity to show the role of fintech in driving and being part of that net zero ambition that we have for the whole of the UK.
I am personally, I always see that fintech was born in Africa with M-Pesa, and there's previous other examples, but that's kind of a good flagship example, and that was from a mobile phone carrier. That wasn't from a bank. That was driven from outside. So I see exactly what you mean in terms of taking a different verticals look at various problems to solve issues like, again, financial inclusion. Sarah, I want to talk a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about one of my favourite banks, Starling Bank. Because I know that they've obviously got quite a big footprint now in Wales. I know Anne is always flying the Welsh flag, which is still technically speaking a small company compared to, in terms of people footprint, compared to the likes of HSBC. What does having an organisation that is as flexible and agile like Starling in Wales, what does that mean again in the short and the long term?
Well, firstly, they're clearly my favourite bank, having been one of the founders, so I'm slightly biased. And the fact that they've come to Cardiff is absolutely fantastic. I think this is something that has happened during the pandemic. In fact, they were due to open their office the day before we were all told to work from home. And over that time, what they have done is they have employed 550 people in the past 15 months here in Cardiff, which I think is a huge credit to the fact they have very slick onboarding and value those members of staff and colleagues and actually have allowed them to work together. I think the really exciting thing about Starling and other businesses is they're bringing, and I said it before, the high quality jobs. And they're bringing the high quality jobs because of the graduates that are coming out of the universities. They're working very closely with those universities. So my understanding is a lot of the fraud investigation work for Starling is happening down in Cardiff. And that's really exciting. And I think just building on the point that Stephen was making, and we're seeing so many things happen across the UK, and this is about collaboration. You know, what's happening up in the Gothco Centre in Edinburgh is really, really impressive. But we've got some new sort of centres for automation and system engineering down here. And interesting, look, what we're seeing through the accelerator and some of the new fintechs that are coming through that is new models for owning a car. You know, for people in London, it might not be unusual to rent a Zip car. but that hadn't got out to the regions. So we're seeing new subscription models coming down here, and that's going to be good for the environment. We're seeing sustainable energy and connecting those with the financial institutions here to green that finance all the way through. And to Stephen's point, you know, COP26 is going to be a really great opportunity for us to highlight all of these things. And I think we can only do that when we share them and we collaborate across the whole of the UK. You know, I'm very proud to have done some research work in partnership with Fintech Scotland and Fintech Wales, and really looking at how we can truly innovate, work together to innovate. But there's so many exciting things here. And as you said, you know, Starling are growing, Monzo are growing. Confused have just been bought before Christmas by Red Ventures, which is really exciting to Wales. They're wanting to do some bigger and better things there and spinning those out as well. And we're seeing lots of other new things happening down here. So yeah, the thriving ecosystem that was highlighted in the Khalifa report, that's fantastic. It's just sort of taken the lid off of what we knew was happening. So we're going to shout louder and prouder about all the brilliant stuff we're doing.
See, I really wanted to kind of like, you know, poke the bear a bit and say, oh, look, Sarah's saying Wales is the best, and kind of play that, but it genuinely isn't. It is about that kind of again, that playing well together.
It's about making sure that Team GB is the best it can be. You know, I talk about, and I believe I'm allowed to talk about this with a rugby analogy, that it's about spotting Alan Wynne-Jones on the muddy pitches on a Sunday morning in Bonamine. That's my job, to find the next best fintech here in Wales. And like Alan Wynne-Jones, to get him to the Swansea team, to get him to the Welsh team, and to get him to the British Lions. Now, I know he didn't last very long, but as of today, Warren Gatland is calling him back to lead that team. But it's about Team GB, and we can only do that with Stephen in Scotland, and you know, in Jersey, and our colleagues in Fintech Northern Ireland, Fintech North, Fintech West, all of us working together to spot that talent and make sure that we can collaborate and enable them not only to start but to thrive and then to scale, because this is the way that Team GB will continue to be right up there, punching above our weight in the sort of the fintech ecosystem globally.
Absolutely. Tony, I want to come to you because I was doing a bit of research in Digital Jersey. I had no idea that the Vision Fund had offices in from SoftBank in Jersey. What does that mean for not just Jersey but the UK in general in terms of having that access to that ridiculously large amount of finance, which rumour has it the likes of Revolut will be kind of tapping into at some point soon? Where does that element kind of play in terms of venture capital into the overall collaboration, overall ecosystem?
So it's really interesting hearing what Sarah and Stephen have said, because I think we all have our own unique strengths. One of the advantages Jersey has had, although we're a small place, 45 square miles, 100,000 people, we've historically been an international finance centre. You're right, the SoftBank Vision Fund is headquartered and managed out of Jersey. We have a lot of expertise around those funds. We also have other surprises. So I think it will surprise most people to know that WorldPay was founded in Jersey in the 90s. And actually, historically, Jersey's finance industry has put capital business into the UK, I think worth, you know, billions and billions of pounds. It is our sister agency, Jersey Finance, has worked very closely with the City of London, for example. But we get a benefit from bringing together some of that expertise that we have here that's already servicing financial services clients. That industry here, which is a relative niche industry, but a very strong player in wealth management, international banking, they have a lot of requirements. If you look at things that are happening around KYC, digital identity, etc., around the world, they have a lot of requirements around regulatory technology. It's no coincidence that Jersey appointed at the beginning of this year, for the first time ever, our own fintech ambassador, the infamous Dave Birch. People that know, I mean, I've worked with, I think Dave always gets that reaction. Yes, exactly, he's everywhere. And Dave, I've worked with Dave for a long time, and I think Dave, when he first came to Jersey, just after me about 5 years ago, said, actually, Jersey should be the home of RegTech. So as well as having our own finance centre, we're quite lucky. We're not as lucky as Sarah in having some great universities. I'm hoping my son is going to go to a Welsh university in September, touch wood. But what we have things like, we have our own regulator, we have our own financial services regulator, we have our own information commissioner. And Jersey's been very successful at using its control over its own destiny in areas such as not just taxation, but regulation, legislation, around, you know, being a centre for places like funds management, as you've said about SoftBank Vision Fund. And we're using that to look at how we work on things like data stewardship. You know, if you look at data trust, if you look at data foundations, we're very lucky we've got Professor Dame Wendy Hall on our board now, who wrote the UK government's AI strategy. And we've been collaborating with academics in the UK, but also lots of other businesses in the UK, to look at how we can bring our own unique strengths and experiences about regulation, use the skills we have. We have lots of lawyers here, lots of accountants, lots of bankers, that can be a thing, honestly. How do we use those skills to not only develop a strong digital sector, which is our primary job at Digital Jersey, but how do we strengthen our finance industry? And I think that's the thing about fintech done in the right way is a win-win. You know, I think we all remember those early days which said all fintech is going to be disruptive, it's going to destroy the large organizations. But what we've seen is, back to one of Stephen's C's, collaboration between fintech technology companies and the strong financial services players is good for everybody.
Absolutely. And to bring in another C, the winner of all this collaboration is going to be the customer, because it makes the whole thing easier. Stephen, I want to again come to you again. I just want to explore that collaboration a bit further. But long term, what does that kind of mean? The fact that, you know, are we going to end up in a world where different regions of the UK are almost specialised in different elements?
To some extent, I think that, and that's emerging now, Ali. You see that it was touched on by Tony there in terms of Jersey, great expertise around obviously sort of regulation. Wales, terrific, you know, sort of innovations around, for example, insurance, and sort of like the platforms like Confused and .com that are there. And similarly with Northern Ireland in terms around sort of data and cyber, some great expertise and the centre of excellence that they're developing there, and we're collaborating with them on. So I think those emerging, I think what's key though is you can't just suddenly sort of say, here's a centre of excellence, here's a specialism. There's got to be a groundswell of emergent innovation, entrepreneurial activity that's done in a collaborative way, but done in a way actually where there's an experimentation. And that environment, back to the environment, is created really by encouraging a different creative way to kind of reinvent financial services to make it better. And I suppose that's the key, is you're focused on what's the purpose of it? What's the outcome? The outcome must be to make people's lives better when it comes to the financial world. And whether that's in terms of the way they run a business, or it's the way that a family has better experiences, the way that their money is managed, the outcome has got to be that. The outcome is not just having more fintech, it's just a means to an end. And I think if we're all driven around that outcome, then it will make a better world. Sounds very lofty to say that, a better world for all, because we're focused on the human impact. And the human impact, the way we lead our lives, the way we create businesses, the way we establish sort of wealth over sort of time. So yes, those centres of excellence are emerging across the UK. And I think the benefit for the UK and GB is therefore the whole becomes bigger than the sum of the parts. And that enables the tide to rise for everybody. And so instead of seeing it as a kind of can we be better than Wales when it comes to insurance? Can we be better from Jersey when it comes to reg? Well, why not just collaborate? Because actually those different minds will actually the tide rise for everybody. In short, Ali.
I think, Ali, just coming back on that, one of the things that Chris Skinner said here when he opened the day here at Fintech Week London was we don't need more bankers in banking. And to Stephen's point, we need to look at this from the consumer lens. And you know, I might have been involved in founding a bank, but I'm not a banker. And actually asking those questions and looking at things with a consumer lens, I think was a real advantage. And challenging what the norms were. Now, that's not to say that you don't want the compliance, the regulation. Of course, we want consumers to be protected and we want these services to be secure. But at the same time, if you come with a different lens and you're prepared to ask what might be considered silly questions, you can come up with consumer focused orientated solutions. And to Stephen's point, whether that's Wales continuing to be great at comparison platforms or insurance, I dare say will involve other things as well. Because I think the one thing you can't do is create a centre of excellence or decide where you want entrepreneurs to be. Entrepreneurs will grow from where they live, and they often don't move. They quite like to be where they are. So this ability in this hybrid world to collaborate more, but be where you want to be from a base perspective, I think has got so many sort of untapped opportunities. And the other parts of the discussion that have been had here is around digital identity. And are we at a point now where, because of COVID, one of the positives that come out of that is the acceptance or the recognition that digital identity will help us to prove trust? Because at the end of the day, we're all producing solutions in this fintech financial services world that are underpinned by trust. And that's something that the banking sector has had to build up since the financial crisis of 2008. So I think digital identity has been a big topic here today, and open banking and open finance and open data. We haven't even scratched the surface. And really looking at this from what the consumer wants and what makes the consumer's life easy. Like I've said it before, but I think it's got endless potential. But you can see I'm a bit revved from actually being in a room with people talking about these things. And yeah, the great Dave Birch is here, and Chris Skinner, all of the fintech sort of greats are good, and Gala and all the rest of them. So yeah, there's a lot of really interesting conversations happening.
I was going to say something else, but I wanted to bring on that point that you mentioned there. Obviously, during lockdowns, a lot of people have been remaining locally. I know, for example, a very senior executive at TransferWise, who lives around the corner from me, he's been doing a lot of talks at various schools because he has the time and they're local. And it just makes me think that because they're not outside, because they're a bit outside of London, that's then giving that kind of that spark. As you said, you're energized from being in the room listening to it. It allows that that kind of inspiration to be democratized across the whole country a wee bit more.
Yeah, I mean, we've actually run our first fintech debate in person with schools. So we're taking the fintech topic. We're encouraging secondary school students to research fintech, to understand this emerging sector and the exciting opportunities that could bring to them. But we're also teaching them those skills that are so important to coming into the world of work. We hear employers saying all the time, whilst we're getting some very highly skilled and educated graduates or students coming into the world of work, we also need them to understand those debating subjects, negotiation subjects, communications. So it's been a real privilege to be able to work with some of the schools across Cardiff, and we're looking to expand that a little bit further across Wales, which is really exciting. And those are opportunities we've had the ability to do because more people are here in the Principality and able to work in that hybrid manner, which is to the benefit of the students and the benefit of the community and the ecosystem.
Off that point, I want to talk about talent. I've just finished. I haven't been reading. I've been on Audible. I've just finished the Audible of the Amazon book, and there's an incredible chapter around Amazon's HQ2 and the search to try and find the perfect location for HQ2. And they're going, Austin's got a fantastic university campus in terms of talent. Not enough people overall, and not enough good transport links. What about New York? Well, the regulations are not as friendly. It did actually become quite a little insight into locations, and obviously the strengths, and what they ended up doing was splitting it because there was no kind of golden setup. But let's look at talent. If we can first of all go to yourself at Stephen at Fintech Scotland. Obviously, I know Scotland's got a variety of universities, but it's not just about the the piece of paper. It's about obviously the actual skills that people are able to learn. Just tell us a little bit about some of the talent capabilities, but also ethos and approach at in Scotland.
Yeah, thanks, Harry. Yeah, it's a couple of points on that. One is the multidisciplinary approach when it comes to fintech sort of talent. I touched on earlier, it's not just about the technology and the data skills and literacy. It's around the business acumen, the entrepreneurship, the innovation, but also the creativity, design, philosophy, psychology, geography, human geography, all play a part actually. And actually our fintech students groups that are based at Strathclyde, Edinburgh, Glasgow are really multidisciplinary groups. And it's wonderful to see how they come together and look at particular problems that are solved together as part of their way of collaborating. So they're very much open rather than actually a closed group. So that's number one. Secondly, I think the thing about talent is interesting about Scotland, but it applies across the whole of the UK. Of course, financial services is a huge employer. And there are some terrific people with super talents and experiences of financial services that could be applied into the fintech world if we help them with their digital and data literacy and in terms of their creativity. So we're spending a lot of time with the educational establishments, the universities and others really to help, how do you help people in their 30s, 40s, 50s develop the next stage of their career in this growing, emerging world of fintech? So it's not just about the younger generations, it's about all generations being part of the mix. Because, I mean, I'm really old, I'm 60 nearly. So it can't be just left to the old, it can't be just left to the young. You want that blend. And therefore talent is very much a multidisciplinary, multi-demographic mixing pot, plus people from diverse backgrounds really then creates a really exciting and fun environment.
I think when you say as well about the diverse background, it's diversity of thought as well, which plays a major. Now, Tony, so obviously Jersey, you haven't got that many universities because you're 45, 100,000 people, 45 miles squared, but you've got a lot of talent and a lot of experience opportunities. Just talk us a little bit through Jersey's role with here.
What Stephen said was spot on. I mean, we were lucky enough to be able to found just under 2 years ago the Digital Jersey Academy for higher education. And it's interesting, our flagship course is something that is called, we do coding programs and things like that, but our flagship course, which is on the Ofqual register at level 6, so degree equivalent, is called the Digital Leadership Program. And it's exactly what Stephen said. It is not just about one aspect of technology. It's about digital leadership. It's what you need to set up and run a business, not just work for one. But what's interesting is we've got, school leavers doing the full-time course of that. But what has been really successful in Jersey is the part-time course, because we've seen people ranging from 20 to 60, typically from the finance industry, but other companies as well. They come along every Monday night, one Saturday a month. They do 6 hours online work as well. And our focus here is really about retraining. And you look at the impact of technology on finance, and you see the impact of automation. We're not immune to that in Jersey, the sort of businesses we have. So, and I imagine this is the same in every financial centre in the world. How do you retrain the existing workforce? Because parts of their jobs are going to be replaced by technology, not the whole jobs. As somebody said to me, remember when Lotus 123 came out and everyone said, we're not going to need any more accountants. Well, I don't remember a substantial reduction in the number of accountants in the world since technology came in. But how do you retrain people so that they can actually add more value to their organizations, move up the ranks into higher value roles? It's good for countries as well, because the return on investment in that is quite powerful. We've been very lucky. Jersey, like lots of other places, government has come up with various fiscal stimulus initiatives. And one of them, we've just been able to create 600 places on courses in all sorts of things, from digital marketing to AI, data analytics, coding. We filled those 600 courses in record time, and they're a mixture of job hunters, but a lot of them are people in jobs who want to better themselves. And I think this workforce retraining is as important, if not more important, than the focus on the school leavers.
Let's go to you, Sarah, with Wales in terms of talent, because it's not just about sheer quantity in terms of workforce. It's also about in diversity of skill, but also diversity of aptitude.
Yeah, and look, as someone who's highly dyslexic, I couldn't agree more that having that diversity of thought is a really powerful thing to have in the room. Diversity in every shape that it comes in helps us to represent the communities and the consumers that we're looking to identify. But as you said, that retraining is also something we've got so much invested in the workforce at the moment to actually retrain or uptrain. It just gives the businesses that great opportunity to keep, to embrace the workforce and to stimulate them further. We are blessed with lots of students in Wales. Not all of them stay, and that is our challenge, is to keep some of that talent here. But that's not to say that we don't value the talent we've got in Wales already. And many people will look at Wales and possibly other parts of the UK as being areas where traditionally we've been known for operational and customer support. And one thing that I would say about that is there is nobody that knows your system better or your consumers' needs better than someone who has actually been providing customer support. So if you're able to uptrain that workforce, which we are seeing across our membership quite actively, then you really are developing a very strong, very deep qualified workforce for the future and to take you into the future. So yeah, we're doing a bit of both. I think the other thing that we're looking to do is we recognise, and it comes back to what I was saying about working with the students, the sixth form students, we recognise that bridge between academia and work is one that we need to sort of patch over. I mean, I would ask what universities are going to look like in the future. I think the education system has been interesting through the pandemic. We've seen lots of people doing online courses, but we're actually schools all doing their lessons via Teams. And I've had one of my oldest children did his first year of university from his bedroom in our house, which to his advantage meant he was cooked and cleaned for. But we're seeing things change, and I think there's a lot more that really has to sort of settle itself back down as we start to come out of this, and who knows exactly what's going to happen. But as I said, don't underestimate where the regions have had this really great workforce that have been used to dealing with consumers, understand the products, understand needs, and can upskill and retrain those, and are doing that really actively.
Fantastic, very, very well said there. That would be another thing that if I was listening, I'd be tweeting that out. All right, I want to ask, put to the panel a very, in some ways, tricky question. How come the UK, with all this supply of talent, with all this very sensible regulation and opportunity, how come the UK hasn't produced a Google or an Amazon or an absolute titan within the tech industry? Why is there not a UK Google running the world at the moment?
I don't think we're loud and proud enough. And it's one of the things that I would say about Wales, and I'm sure Tony and Stephen and anybody else representing regions would say the same, that in our regions we have amazing businesses and they're often not loud enough and proud enough about what they do. We need to be bolder, we need to take more risks, and we need to teach that through education. Just encourage and nurture these things. I think we've got the capacity to do that. I mean, our innovation and the resilience of the British people is phenomenal. So yeah, I don't know the answer, but I think we've got to be a bit bolder.
I suppose, Ali, but do we want a Google? Why does it have to be all one big dominating vehicle? We've got, as Sarah said, so many terrific sort of businesses under play. Let me take one small FNZ, multi-billion business that underpins the vast majority of people's savings and in pensions. No one knows them because they're the plumbing underneath all those major pension companies. But two guys from came to Edinburgh, 13 years ago, now multi-billion, not just across the UK, but worldwide. But they're just one of many examples. So is it just about having one major dominant vehicle or lots of really exciting, innovative and creative and changing dynamic businesses?
It's a really good point. It's a really good point, Stephen, because people talk about unicorns and then they talk about zebras. And isn't it better to have a herd of zebras rather than relying on one unicorn? I'm proud to say we've got 2 or 3 bubbling unicorns in Wales. We've obviously got FTSE companies as well, but I'd rather have my money in a herd than in a one.
You just used my pet hate word, unicorn, because I hate the fact that for some reason we use the word unicorn as if the key fact about unicorns is they're rare, instead of the fact they don't XXX exist. I think Sarah's got it right about culture. I mean, we've always had very talented people in the UK. We've always had lots of ideas, lots of technology development. What we've been not so good is commercializing it. It seems like an age away, but I was lucky enough at the very beginning of 2020 to spend a week out in Silicon Valley and talking to some of the people who knew the sort of founders of, Larry and Sergey at Google and others. And I think it wasn't just the skills, it wasn't just an amazing university in a place like Stanford. It was the coming together of that with the culture in California, the close-knit community, the fact that people were spinning things off each other. So I think it is culture. And I think sometimes in the UK, it's that great British reserve of not even, not necessarily, blowing your own trumpet, but not even telling people you've got one. And I think that's the problem. But I think it's really interesting in the conversations I've had with Apple and Google and others in the UK. Isn't it interesting that quite often these American giants come to the UK next? Yeah. You look at, one of the, I'm not a great fan personally of Brexit at all, understatement of the year, but I think one of the things the UK has going for it is the talent and the skills within the wider digital sector, not just fintech. That's really attractive to the tech giants. And I think that, we've got a culture there and a set of skills that it's very hard for other countries, even in Europe, to match. So, I think we can power a lot of these companies around the world. I agree with what Stephen says about the plumbing and things like that. But I think maybe we do need to give people a bit more confidence. The future of the economy, especially post-COVID, is built on skills and entrepreneurialism. And I think it's not just about the tech skills, as Stephen said earlier on, is it about the wider skills? How do you develop a generation of entrepreneurs that want to set up their own business rather than necessarily work for someone else's?
I also, I don't want to be just, although it would be fun to sit here and slag off some of the bizarre culture in Silicon Valley. There is very much, it is not about, it's a cliche, especially if you are familiar with the TV show of wanting to make the world a better place, but then that's kind of almost a mask for as high a valuation and make a lot of money as fast as possible, as opposed to lots of little bits. But do you think that kind of motivation in the UK is very much about seeing people and trying to make a difference to people's individual lives? Do you think that's kind of one of the main motivators? Because we don't have that kind of try and get the biggest valuation as possible compared to the likes of California.
I think I see a lot of focus, particularly in the fintech world, at solving problems. Interesting enough, in Jersey, we're not, because our finance industry is not so focused on the retail side. It's more about wholesale. It's more about, as I said, regulatory technology. It's interesting that where I certainly seen a lot of people set up new fintechs. They're people with skills coming from an existing financial services industry, and they see problems within their organization or within their industry that they think technology can solve. And I think we're very good at that in the UK, from what I've seen, of spotting problems in industry, spotting where technology can overcome a barrier, can make things faster, more efficient. And perhaps maybe that's our focus, rather than just, okay, there are people making money and there's nothing wrong with that. If you get the good product first, you'll get the customers, you'll make the money. But I think that problem-solving ethos is really key. And again, I think that's a really key skill to teach, particularly in fintech.
I think the other thing here is that we're also very inclusive, and I think we are always keen to use technology for good. I've always felt proud of being able to use technology for inclusion and serving the larger majority. So I think there's that aspiration. But look, that's to say that we still have visions of Silicon Valley and the Welsh Valleys, but with Welsh culture. with the culture that says you have a family, with the culture that says you are, you have a life, but you can still develop new and innovative products and use tech for good. So it sounds like we're all saying some very similar things here, but I really like Stephen's point. Do we need a Google? Let's go for a herd of zebras. Well, they might not exist in the UK because the temperature's maybe not good enough for them. But yeah, let's do something so everybody can benefit from it, rather than making a small number of people very wealthy.
Yeah, I agree, Sarah. I think actually, but I was thinking not just zebras. I was thinking more of a Noah's Ark, a big Noah's Ark. It's not the whole family is on there, all from different parts of the animal kingdom.
Sorry, a really good analogy given the rain yesterday that flooded everywhere.
I'm going to have to take that because that's brilliant. I'm going to get a little cartoon of that for our next issue of the FinTech magazine, because that's gold, the Noah's Ark of the UK as opposed to unicorns. Right. So just on that note of problem solving, I was listening to the podcast with Tom talking about Monzo and talking about on the vaccination drive, and he said I found myself looking at what was happening in terms of the vaccination drive and going, oh, you could use code to solve that. And I think that approach of using technology to make things more efficient, whether it be on medicine, whether it be in fintech or wherever, I think that is very much at the heart of British entrepreneurship. The last thing I want to do, just to kind of wrap things up as a whole, I kind of want to summarize why should people get in contact with you, and who do you want to get in contact with you following FinTech Week? Stephen, I'll go to you first. Why should people reach out to you afterwards and say, hey, how can you help us out? I've got a cool idea that I'm starting this company. What should I do?
If you're interested in community, if you're interested in the collaboration, and if you want to be part of a cluster that isn't just about Scotland, it's actually about part of the UK, then we're always open. We're very inclusive, and in September for 4 weeks it will be the Scotland FinTech Festival. Sarah, maybe Tony, maybe yourself, Ali, will be up alongside government ministers, the FCA, everybody will be in Scotland for the festival. A physical, at last, will be together to build on the successful London FinTech Week. So you'll have the opportunity to savour some of the atmosphere and meet some of the wonderful people we have here as part of the UK.
Excellent. Tony, same question. Who do you want reaching out to you, and what should you be talking about?
Well, we're fortunate, and I think it's hard to talk too much about the silver linings of a pandemic, but one of the ones for us is people have realised that they don't have to work within commuting distance every day of central London, for example. The same for the other countries here. We've never had a healthier pipeline of founders wanting to relocate their startup, relocate themselves individual to Jersey. If you can live on a great small island with lots of sunshine, even more than Edinburgh and Glasgow, Stephen, if that's possible, and have some of the world's fastest broadband there, that's very powerful. But also, Jersey is a great place to come and test products. We push the proposition of Sandbox Jersey because we actually have the sand as well. And the fact that in a small place you can work with, almost 100 fintech startups, established financial services companies in an international finance center, but also very cooperative, supportive regulators here as well. So it's not just a good place to come and relocate to and run your business from. It's a great place to come and test out how your service will work and help develop it to then expand globally.
Excellent. And lastly, Sarah, you're shattering the illusion that this is happening live, and definitely not pre-recorded on the Tuesday before this goes out. But why should people reach out to you, and what should they be reaching out to you about?
Well, FinTech Wales is about establishing a globally recognised FinTech hub of excellence, but it's about collaboration and it's about ecosystems. So we're working with established financial partners and collaborating with those new startups and making sure that we can collaborate and partner to improve and sort of speed up people's digital journeys for the good of the consumer and the customer. I happen to think that we have beautiful beaches, we have wonderful mountains, we have a great life here. but we're only an hour and a half from London. So, you know, it has a lot of benefits to it. We've got great universities, we've got lots of great upskilling opportunities. The community is extremely warm and welcoming, and it is one that wants to collaborate. It's one that wants to collaborate with our friends in Scotland, Northern Ireland. Can't wait to have the opportunity to go to Jersey, and down here in London. So yeah, if you want to be part of something that's collaborative, forward-thinking, innovative, and bold and brave, then you're very welcome to come to Wales.
Excellent, excellent. Well, fantastic. Isan Misha Alistair, Tapo Liad, agus Masan Leng.